Awesome.
So as they continue to get more customers, our employment base will grow.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. My name is Grant Goodwin, and I'm the CEO of DocuPet, and Savannah Vince is now playing the role of clicker. But if necessary, she is also the head of our municipal relations. So she is the person who manages the relationships that we have with municipalities to ensure that we're providing all of that they need to do what it is that we do, which I'll explain now. I thought maybe I'd take 10 or 15 minutes to explain a bit about our organization, but please interrupt me at any time if you have particular questions. And we have more materials we can show here, and we look forward to answering any questions. But today, if we can cover a bit about our background, the growth of our business and the growth of the licensing programs of our partners, then we'll talk a little bit about the program that we are proposing for the city of Syracuse and the investment that we'll make in the community, both as a business and in your licensing program as well. A bit about DocuPet. We were founded in 2011, and we were founded not because we wanted to process dog license applications, but because we identified a North American-wide problem, and that is that across North America, only about 13% of pets are licensed, despite the fact that in 90% of municipalities, a dog license, and often a cat license as well, is required. To understand why increasing compliance is important is to realize the vital and often traumatizing work that goes on in animal shelters across America, especially. For the most part, animal care providers are underfunded. And for municipalities, it represents an enormous cost, but it also represents a emotional cost with respect to a growing pet owner population. Knowing that the majority in some cases, and often in most cases, of funding for animal control can and often does come through pet licensing revenues, we determined that it was necessary for us to create a company that tackled the issue of low license compliance. Since that time, we are a Canadian-based company until very recently. We have our offices just north of here in Kingston, Ontario. We've partnered with 30 different municipalities across Ontario and then wider across Canada as well. In that time, to our mission, we are on average increasing the compliance rate within our partnership municipalities at a rate of over 100% annually, meaning we're doubling sales annually of pet licenses. We are also, through efficiencies of processes, reducing the cost associated with issuing a license by on average $3.21. Licensing programs are difficult to manage because there's a complexity to them that may not be obvious from the outside looking in. If we can make the centralized systems, if we can create efficiencies and optimize the language that is used to encourage people to license, then we can, with that centralized system, provide efficiencies to our municipal partners that allows for everyone to save money and, of course, earn more money all the while. On the backbone of this success, and as we began learning more about an expansion into the United States, we conducted our first annual benchmarking report. Happy to have a copy of this sent to you at any point if you want to learn more about the state of pet licensing across North America. But rather than go into all the findings, some of the high-level findings, we spoke with over 65 operators of programs across the United States, gathered data from over 600 different municipalities, and what we found generally was 5 key takeaways that I think are really important to understand how our organization is built. The first is that despite the fact that compliance is extremely low, pet licensing is extremely important to those who manage programs. And it's not just important for the revenue, it's important for pet identification, to understand how often pets get away from their owners and how futile the methods are for getting that pet returned quickly to the pet owner at no cost and at reduced risk for the community and for the pet itself. It's rather hard to fathom. That tag around the neck of the dog is the #1 tool for getting a pet back. And if we aren't able to take the limited information from that pet, expand it to get more contact information, and return that animal home quickly and safely, then we have increased costs. Typically, shelter burden is where those costs come in. So licensing is important for those reasons. The majority of North American program operators deemed their programs to not be doing very well. The third point is that across North America, average dog compliance is just 23%. Average total pet license compliance is about 13%. So people just don't license. And those that are doing slightly better than average are doing many things to make it work. And that is to say that it's a multifaceted scenario. It's not a silver bullet scenario. There's not one thing that we can identify that if you just do that, it's done. All you had to know was that one secret. It's not that environment. But one thing that's also important, though, as part of this is, interestingly, when we looked at the programs across North America that were doing better than others, they had on average a 30% higher license fee. And so we see all these scenarios where people across North America are dumping their prices in order to encourage licensing, likely based on the complaints of a few over the counter who are saying, I don't want to pay money. But in fact, the programs that have higher revenues typically are the ones that have higher compliance rates, also have higher fees. Now, what came first is probably the question there. But those were the key findings. And all this is to say that I don't think there's anyone in North America who knows more about pet licensing than us. And our program has been designed as such. So we talked about a multifaceted solution. What you're looking at here is sort of a placemat that would describe the DocuPet program from a certain perspective. And that is to say that there are 4 columns here, and each of those columns represents one of the 4 things that have to be put in place in order to have a healthy licensing program. The first is to make pet licensing valuable. We call this incentives and services. So right now, if you license your pet in the average municipality, you might go to a counter somewhere, pay $10 to $30, and wait for a renewal in the mail 11.5 months later and do it all again. But what did you actually receive? I would liken this to parking downtown. If I pay for parking downtown, at least I get a parking spot. If you pay for a pet license, what do you get? And so the DocuPet program provides a number of things, including a home safe program. Maybe Savannah, if you have those tags handy, you could throw them around just to help explain this a little bit. On the back of every one of the tags that we provide is a unique alphanumeric number. When someone types in that number, they will access the, if a pet is found, they type in that number on our system, and we can reunite the finder with the pet owner immediately. This program is also something that is tied to what we call the lost pet service, whereby if a pet is known to be lost by the owner, they can go into their online account on the DocuPet system and send an alert out to all those in the community who have asked to be notified. And it's sort of like an Amber Alert for pets. And it's this home safe program and the communication thereof that gets on average 97% of reported pets lost home within 48 hours at no cost to anybody. So there's value for licensing your pet. We also give people access to an online environment where they can add additional photos, additional contact information that's helpful for them, but also to the administrators of the program. If you open up the package that you see there, this is typically what we send people when they license their pet. You might see that there's a rewards card in there and a gift card. We work with retailers in the community, both large and local and regional, to ensure that everyone receives a gift card when they license their pet. So it might cost them $10 to license their pet here in Syracuse, but they'll get $25 to spend at a pet shop. Right? So there's a way to make the financial burden go away instantly. And lastly, we provide a lot of information about what's going on in the community with respect to dogs, what's going on regionally, and we provide all kinds of information about pet care and animal care as a service to provide to your residents. So what we've done with this column was we've made sure that pet licensing is valuable to people. Now that we have a valuable program, it's time to let people know about it. One of the primary reasons people don't license is they don't know they have to. So we spend a lot of time. We make the investment with our municipal partners, so we would be investing significant sum of money with you guys, not just up front, but on an ongoing basis, to ensure that in partnership with you guys, everyone in Syracuse is made aware, not just of the need to license, that's important, but the value that comes to them and to their community when they do. One of the key messaging statements here is to let people know that that license helps keep animals safe. And most pet owners like animals. And most pet owners don't like to know that pets are being euthanized unnecessarily due to a lack of funding. And we of course know that if we can get more funds, we can reduce the likelihood of that happening. But we spend a lot of time canvassing the community. We'll have representatives go door to door and leave door hangers. We'll make sure we have a robust online marketing program as well. We send newsletters, and we're working with the folks in the mayor's office and other pet organizations in town, animal organizations in town, to participate in events and propose new events to make sure that awareness is high and people realize that we're a key part of a healthy and thriving animal community here in Syracuse.
Ask a question.
Of course.
When you mentioned the $25 voucher that comes with it, how does that work out financially?
There's no financial relationship at all between us and the pet store. So we do the administrative work. They provide the vouchers for free. It's a way for them to gain access as opposed to new customers and be associated with an important program in the community.
Okay. So they're using it as an advertisement and an enticement to get people in there. The pet store usually just complies with the voucher then, yeah.
That's right. The pet store just takes the $25 as a gift card. It's essentially a gift card to be issued, but it's only to those who license or who renew their license. In most cases, it's for every pet. So if you have 2 pets that you're licensing, you would get, in this case, $50 to spend. It's that awareness program and all the communication and value you provide that starts to change the attitude and to provide more opportunities for you folks in terms of how people feel about the city and how people feel about the dog program generally here in Syracuse. I know there've been a few initiatives that have been put forward, like the dogs in the car issues and the not allowing dogs to be on tethered in very hot or cold weather. Those are great initiatives. I think this is part of it as well. But in doing this, we build a larger sort of connected community where we have more we can talk about, more we can communicate. It's easier for us to reach a more engaged dog owner population in the community.
Does licensing ever relate to chipping?
Great question. Microchipping is it's a great idea. It's an important initiative. A microchip stays with the animal where a tag can sometimes fall off of an animal. The issue with relying only on microchipping, if this is a question, is that it's very difficult to read the microchip without taking the animal to a shelter that has at least ties to 3 different companies and sometimes more companies that offer the microchips. So it doesn't help get a lost pet home quickly at no cost. It does help keep verified identification tied to a pet. So what we do is we ensure that people are encouraged when they're licensing their pet to include the microchip number. So we have access to that information, as will your animal control team. But we obviously must get that tag to them and get that tag around the neck so that if you were to come across a pet in the community, you could do something about it if you so chose to, without taking it to a shelter.
In the adding value to the license, is there a way to offer an option with, I mean, people have chip providers, right, who they go to already, and they kind of do this add value thing where, like, if your dog's chipped and they eat rat poison and you're calling poison control, like that line, they waive the fee if you have like they've, I don't know, I'm just thinking of ways to add value.
Yeah, I think that would be probably outside of our realm. That would be your policy decisions, how you want to incentivize. I mean, certainly it's quite common for people, for municipalities to offer incentives, financial incentives on a license if a pet is spayed or neutered, as an example. So I think
every day though we get calls in my office because people have the tag number and they contact us and then we communicate with them who the owner is and they return the dog directly. It doesn't have to go through a veterinarian or anything. You know, we found this dog, here's their license number, and we connect them with the owner.
So this is an online automated way to handle that, of course, outside of business hours too.
So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, perfect. So if we have the first 2 figured out, we have this wonderful program that people use and we communicate to people. Now we have to make sure we have the efficiencies that I believe the average consumer expects in 2018. So we have to make sure that people can get their license or renew their license where they want to. So that means that they can do it online. In the first year, we'll have 60 to 75% of licenses being registered online as opposed to over the counter. We want to make sure that they can still go over the counter and do that right here at City Hall, perhaps other places. They can do it by mail or they can do it by phone. They can actually call in and get that information. There's a really robust online experience that allows them to do this. It's been optimized over several years. Document management is a major issue in this space because it's often required. In the case of Syracuse, it is to have rabies and spay-neuter proof, documentation proof available, but we allow for anyone to upload this information and therefore to have it be easily accessed for those in the future who need this information. Making sure that people can renew an automated fashion if they purchase online. They can ask for their renewal to be automatically approved next year through that credit card, which is just a convenience piece, but also to ensure that it works on every single device. So whether it's the smartphones I see on your table or tablets or any other screen size, to make sure that works. And that's for all parties. So that's not just for the pet owners, but also for the administrative staff here in the community. And the fourth is to make sure that people know that the ordinance is a real thing, that you must license your pet. If we have all these what we call carrots, these incentives and good parts about the program, it's also to make sure that as you choose to be able to deal with folks who have opted not to comply with the ordinance. And so we work very hard to make sure that people have every opportunity to renew their license, and we send a series of renewal reminders, email, automated phone calls, mailed warning letters, to get people to license, to renew their license. Typically, the industry would see about 65% renewal rates, meaning only 65% of people renew their license after the first year. We're about 85% on average. Maximum in the industry would be 92 because pets don't live quite as long as humans, and of course, people move out of jurisdictions. So we have a very high renewal rate, so we don't have to conduct that enforcement on those who have already licensed previously as often. We do send letters and we can work on the compliance reporting as well. Here's a list of people who perhaps are worth contacting if you don't want us to contact them. We also make it much easier for those who work in the field, the animal control officers in the field, to look up all this information and to conduct reporting as they need to do their jobs well, so they can actually issue licenses in the field if they like, but also can tie into a database and see who has licensed and who has not, and do a better job of, well, when they're dealing with animals that are away from their owners, of looking up all information available to them at that time to get those animals home. And we spend a lot of time working with those in the community who are handling animals on a regular basis. So whether the veterinarian clinics or whether it's shelters, other people that are involved in animal-related programs in each of our communities that we serve, to make sure they're aware of what we do, because they are our influencers. They are the people that are champions of animal care, and we want to make sure that they know the value of the program to them, to each of the pet owners, and to the community writ large. And we spend a lot of time ensuring that that's the case. So there's some carrots on the left side, the value of licensing, and the sticks on the other side, a component of making sure that people take this ordinance seriously. If you want to kick over the next slide, this is to get a sense of how well it's working. The city of Guelph is actually up about 230% since last year in their licenses. That's more than a tripling of license sales in the last year. Across our system, this is on average, it's 107% growth in May of 2018 over the previous year. So that means we're more than doubling license sales. And if just kick it forward, or would you mind? Yeah, thanks. It's why we're expanding. We spent 4 years, a number of us have run a series of companies, many of which are operating actively in the States. We haven't expanded into the United States until we really knew what worked. The reason the program works is because we listen. We listen to what administrators want. We listen to what pet owners like and use. We don't know, but people do. And if we can figure out what people like, and in fact, we've had the great opportunity to work with some of your people in the parks group and the animal control group especially, and they're helping us figure out some new functionality that would work for them. And we know that would be more likely to work for everybody if it works for them. In these cases, we're now ready to expand in the United States. And because we're not too far from here, and because we have this nice relationship between Kingston and Syracuse from a business development perspective, we got introduced to you, and since then we've had nothing but great meetings, working with people from the mayor's office, working with people in various animal control departments, people at Center State CEO, people like John to my right. It's been a joy, and so we've decided to set up our office here. We open it up less than a month from now. We'll have a fulfillment operation here, so all of our American tag distribution will happen here. Our regional marketing management division, so all of our American marketing and the management of that on a regional basis will be here. And a municipal facing sales and marketing will all be here. So essentially the vast majority of the operation will be built or reallocated to an office here in Syracuse. Our goal is to have about 20 employees here in Syracuse by the end of 2020, which is not that long in municipal cycles, which is what we deal with from a sales perspective. We expect to have about 18 municipalities launched in the United States by the end of next year, given the relationships we are. And if you guys are interested in approving our program here in Syracuse on July 30th, I think is the meeting, we would hope to be able to launch a program here in September, and you'd be the first in America to have it. It'd be an honor for us to have that happen. Do you have any questions about the program?
Yeah, it's an exciting presentation, and we're glad that you guys are in Syracuse. First of all, it's awesome. My one question was, you said it's the numbers are impressive, so I don't mean to belittle them, but 107 the increase.
Yeah.
Is that over the course of years, or a year, or
1 year?
1 year. So you guys have been in operation in Ontario for 1 year?
No, we've been in operation in Ontario for 4 years, but that 107% is the May 2018 sales versus the May 2017 sales in the same cities.
Okay.
So if you take the sales, legacy sales versus the sales that we provided them, it's up more than double.
Great.
In 1 year.
So do you feel that, I guess I'm just curious, over a 4-year period, do you feel that how to say it, does it take that while for what were years 1, 2, and 3 kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like I'm wondering like if we're going to get, say we're at 13% here in Syracuse or whatever it should be, will it be 26 and then it cut off, or do we think by the end of 5 years we'll be up to 50% or 60%?
Well, the nice thing about your situation is your compliance is very low right now. It's about 8%, we estimate. And which means there's so much more to get.
A lot of room for growth, right?
There's so much more to get, and so I think we could be a bit more aggressive in terms of what we would what we believe would happen here if we roll out our current programs. And I'll answer the first question, which is in the first year that we were doing this with a couple of communities who were the first to take on this challenge with us. Growth was sort of in the 20 to 30% annually, in that range. Now across the board, it's over 100% because we keep on adding to the system. The ones that we've just launched recently are already getting the 100+%. But it does impact a major factor is just what you've said, which is, are you starting at 57% compliance? Because doubling is not possible, right? Or are you starting at 8%? So I think in your case, there's a lot that we have to do together. Really it's allowing us to do what we know works. And if that's the case, doubling for the first couple of years would not be a concern at all. We would expect to have a kind of a tripling in the first year. Let's get up to kind of over 20% in the 25% range, and then we'll go from there. But 40 to 50% compliance is certainly possible.
Just to give you a historic background on this, up until 2010, the city was just a licensing agent for New York State on dog licenses. New York State handled it all. They did all the renewal letters. And we were just getting a percentage of the license because we were an agent. Because we sell DEC licenses, we sell marriage licenses. All state licenses are administered by city clerks and town clerks. So in 2010, they said you have to follow the rules, but you can run your own dog program within those rules. So that's why we're even able to consider DocuPet now, and it wasn't something we could. It wasn't an option previously. So we believe this is going to help, a huge amount in getting people to understand the value of their pet. And DocuPet has explained it to me. You don't look at it like registering your car. This is a member of your family. This is something more. There's a good reason to register your dog. And could you talk a little bit more about what websites are done with each dog and how you connect people and all that?
What do you think? Is there any? There won't be any audio on that, will there? Do you want to watch the 1 minute video about how the Home Safe program works? Yeah,
Sure.
If
I've got a
if
minute.
you just skip on down there, and we'll see if my audio will come out of my computer. We're not planning on going through all these slides. They're there for background if you need them. I think you have to go present. Do you? No, go back there. I think
You trying to pull a mic over? Yeah.
We're still gonna do some other ones tomorrow. Up to you. While they're setting that up, I wanted to point out, we really do need to commend Dave Mankiewicz for introducing DocuPet to the city
Yeah.
and helping us, with this program.
Is that how they ended up?
Dave called me to say, I want you to, meet these people and listen to their program, and it was about a year ago.
Awesome.
Pets are members of our family, and we want the very best for them. The last thing we want to imagine is losing them. That's why our free Home Safe program is designed to get lost pets home quickly and safely. See this code? It's the key to Home Safe. Each unique code is associated with the online profile of a pet owner. If your pet gets away, anyone who finds your loved one can simply look up that code and create a found pet report in seconds. They can contact you directly if you've decided to make your information public, or our 24/7 dispatch team will contact you immediately to reconnect you with your buddy. If you know your pet has run off, you can sign into your account and create a lost pet report. You'll add details about where you last saw your pet and ensure all of your contact and pet information is up to date. This triggers a flurry of activities which maximize the odds of your furry family member getting back quickly. First, we'll send a message to the thousands of local pet owners who volunteer on our Lost Pet Brigade. They will begin searching for your pet and let us know as soon as they've been successful. Next, we send messages to local shelters and other animal services providers in the area. And our team will post messages in the right Facebook groups. If needed, we'll even help with poster creation so that you can quickly print and distribute messages on nearby streets. Our dispatch will keep you informed frequently along the way until you and your friend are together again. Home Safe is free, 97% effective, and just one more reason to register your pet with us.
So that's the program that's tied to the unique code on the back of your tags there.
Great.
The other advantage, of course, is the clerk's office is only open 5 days a week from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, so this can be accessed at all hours of the day and night.
Any comments from dog control, animal control, or police department? Yeah. Jason, please come up, introduce yourself. And
We're on television now, Mr. Driscoll. This is
So
big
I know
time.
you had a question about the microchips. Microchips are great, but or you got to have a scanner for one, which you said. And the other problem is you call one number, oh, that's not ours, and then you got to call another number, oh, they send you here, there, everywhere. By the time you've located the information, the pet, you're talking minimum hour. And then by that, we don't have time to do that on the road. By that time, we already lodged the dog in the shelter, and now the people have to, do what they have to do to get it out. So microchipping is great because, it's under the skin, but there's animal hospitals have them, and we have one in our office. And even if that information is not, you have to go through a lot to get what you need from that. So I just wanted to answer that question about that.
While you're up there, Jason, while you're up there, could you talk about the work that DocuPet's done with the animal control to help?
Yeah, so we've used BASS for our dispatching and animal programs. They're designing a new program for us, so it should run hand in hand with the licensing. So when we have a complaint, we will know if that dog's licensed, and we can put it in the complaint. It was licensed, we talked to him. So all these, both programs, from my understanding, Grant, should be work hand in hand.
It's all the same backbone database too. So part of all of this is to realize the sort of, if you have about 2,000 pets licensed in Syracuse right now, and we get that to 8 or 10,000, we're communicating with people, that's a lot more pets that animal control has access to get home, better odds, right? The odds are they'll have information on that animal. But you also have now more people that are getting gift cards, more lost pets that are going home on their own, higher education. And so in a lot of communities we're working with now, we're seeing what we call a tipping point, just meaning that now it's becoming not a rarity that an animal is licensed, which would probably be more often the case, but it's normal for everyone to license. And more often you'll talk to the Joneses next door and say, well, why haven't you? This is what you do when you come to town. You get to be part of this program. So tying it all into one database system so that they have the functionality to do the job is also a way for them to encourage licensing when in their field, because they can now, instead of issuing fines, allow people to license right there and get the benefits of the program, which is a better face for the community and a face for them when they're out there, you know, scaring people into getting their dogs, you know, covered.
And usually whenever I see, oh, this dog's licensed, immediately in my head goes, I've already been in trouble. That's the only way most people get their dog licensed is it's been picked up, we've already dealt with them. So, I mean, and I'm guilty of it. I'll look it up and I'll see, oh yeah, it's licensed, yeah, right. Because we already had interaction with you and you were forced to. So, I mean, the compliance, I would argue it's probably even lower than that, but there's no way to tell. So that's all
One other thing that's a huge advantage here is that, as you know, we only take credit cards in the clerk's office if you purchase online your dog license now. We use the same BAS system they use, which we'll work our way out of once we use DocuPet. But what happens is that we're hoping that the situation will turn out, like let's say now your dog is picked up not licensed. You have to call DeWitt Animal Hospital, which is the place that houses the dog, determine if the dog is there. Then you've got to go down to Parks and Rec and pay the fine. Then you've got to go to my office and get a license. Then you've got to go back to DeWitt Hospital and pick up your dog. The ideal solution would be you'll go to DeWitt Hospital and you can pay through DocuPet the parks fine, the license fee, whatever DeWitt Animal Hospital is going to collect, and pick up your dog. So they're going to be able to use credit cards in a way we don't currently use them because of certain restrictions. So it's going to make it easier for people not to have to run all around to get their pet back.
Easiest would be if the scenario there that a neighbor returns it to you.
Yeah, obviously, but I'm just saying what happens currently now when your dog gets picked up without a license and ends up in DeWitt Animal Hospital.
Right.
Is there anything else, Julie, or anything the staff want to comment?
Does the licensing, I feel like the moment when your dog gets lost is the moment he doesn't have his tag, you know? So like for some reason the collar has come off or whatever. So is there like an ID system where like when it shows up, it's like, oh, golden retriever.
Brilliant question. Yeah, thanks.
In this zone.
Yeah, so there's two elements to this. So animal control will have access to the full database, of course. So they can look up just golden retriever. That's all I know. They might hear someone off in the park saying, Lassie, Lassie, and they can type in the name. They can look up and see a street number that's 123 and just type that in, or that they're on Main Street and type that in. And they can see all of the pets that are on Main Street, or all the retrievers, or all the Lassies. So that can really help them narrow down their search, right? But in the absence of that tag, we would hope that anybody who finds that animal would still feel comfortable calling DocuPet. They should know about us. They can go to the website and they're going to get to our toll-free number. 24/7 we're available, at which point we can do a similar search. Do you have a golden retriever, do you? Do you think it's male or female? Is it younger or older? And we will help them through that process and try and make that reuniting happen. Of course, being very careful with private information. We can't share those in those cases.
But if you had called DocuPet and said my dog is missing, he doesn't have his tag with him or she doesn't have her tag with him now, the,
Yeah.
you're still blowing all this information out to the centers, and so if
That's
they
it.
do get picked up and they end up somewhere, they should say, oh, this dog belongs to so-and-so.
That's it. So that they would get that sort of alert system to the Lost Pet Brigade, and we contact shelters and do everything we can to make that happen, because that's where the pet owners will be contacting, of course, if they aren't contacting us. But at any rate, we'll also, just to be clear, if the pet's not licensed, that doesn't mean we don't provide the service. It's a community service in our mind, right? We know at the end of it, they're probably going to get licensed and be more likely to tell their neighbors about the value that was provided by the community. And so that's how we view it. So it's not just that small subset.
This might not go to you, but maybe anybody, but if you find a dog, what's the proper thing, like let's say no tags, what's the proper thing to do with the dog?
Typically, they'll call our office. They'll call our office. They usually get in touch with people, and they put them in touch with shelters and animal hospitals. Eventually, that call usually circles back to us. Hopefully, it's sooner than later. But I just had a question. With the municipalities that are using your program now, what's the average population of those municipalities?
Yeah. I think the Syracuse population is around 150,000 or so.
145, yeah.
I think the average of ours would be about 135.
Oh, so that's close. I was just curious because when
Yeah.
you were talking about your
It's a few
percentage and the license increases, I was just wondering how that would.
Well, you said
compared to our
Guelph is a
city.
good example. Guelph is 160,000, I believe, right now. And that was the one just quick example we showed there. They started with 3,300 licenses.
Okay.
Interestingly, and this is not to put anything onto the table, they were dogs only, and now they're about 12,000 licenses, and they have dogs and cats and doubled their fees in that time. So you get a sense that, and it's not because it was a decision early on to change anything, it was because more and more people saw the value in making a contribution to the animal welfare in their community that allowed for that. I think you have a lonely job, I guess is my point, right?
Sometimes.
And if we can get a lot of people out there understanding what you do, I think more people would put in a few bucks to help.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, councilors, as you know, there is a dog court being developed or has been in works for now. And one of the things dog court's gonna do is try to, when there's cruelty to animals, which is a different story, the animal is separated and treated like evidence, unfortunately, until the person has gone through the adjudication system. So they're looking at a what do you call it, a foster home system for these dogs. So that, because what happens is the poor dog ends up being euthanized usually because he's unsocialized for a year and a half while the trial's going on. So the dog is a victim twice in the criminal system and possibly with its owner. So DocuPet will work with the dog court, will work with pit crew, will work with other groups to try to coordinate activities. They're very open to doing that kind of thing. So as our dog court goes forward, I think it's a good time to have this type of a program in place that will work hand in hand with that.
And how does the finance work?
Yeah.
As far as, I mean, is this a
Well, currently, just so you know, we do pay for the BASS program, and we pay for it in parks, we pay for it in my office. It's an annual charge to run the system. It's an outdated system. Let me give you an example. If you want to find out if a dog's on North Midler Street and it's put in North Midler, you have to type it exactly that way or it doesn't come up. Where this system, you just start to write the word Midler and it'll, it's like you do when you Google
suggestions?
anything.
Yeah, it's much
So
more
it's a much
advanced.
better system on
Yes,
top of
yes.
it. But we pay for those systems now, and their fee is gonna be derived from the increase in license, but I'll have them explain it further.
Yeah. So remember, like
I was wondering,
our
yeah.
business was built to increase compliance. We decided to make sure our fee structure was the same. So we charge what we call a performance fee, which means when we figure out what the baseline is, how many licenses are you selling before we're involved, and we charge minimal fees, only our out-of-pocket fees for the processing of the paperwork, the mailing, the actual mailing costs, the printing costs of what you have there in front of you. That's all we charge for all the licenses that we handle up to that baseline. And after that, we take a percentage of new revenue. And that's how we guarantee that we're reducing your costs and only being compensated to earn our revenues when we increase your licensing fees. So what that further means is we don't charge any setup fees. We don't charge any monthly fees no software fees, all the tweaking and changing and advice we're getting from some of your people to improve it, we do not charge for that. We do not charge for a customer service team. We don't charge for the community reps that we will hire out of our own pocket, and there'll be employees of our company here in Syracuse going around the community, going to events. We don't charge for any of that, nor online marketing fees. We charge a very minimal fee. We don't make money off of our fulfillment. We make money when we increase licensing here. So it's an opportunity that we share with you, and therefore the revenues work for you, and you aren't obliged to make a financial investment yourself in order to take advantage of the opportunity of low license compliance.
You run your own call center, or do you outsource?
We have our own call center, yeah. Currently it's in Kingston. As we scale, this will be the story here in Syracuse. That may be another element of something that we'd bring to Syracuse.
Officer Thompson.
Hi. As an animal cruelty investigator for the police department, I not only would be looking for pet owners to reunite pets, but also to arrest them. Where's the cutoff for what information that you guys would provide for that? As far as right to privacy for the owners of the pets that are in the program?
It depends how the information comes in. So if it's licensing information, that is of course municipal data, and that would be accessible to you as a officer of the municipality.
Okay.
So all of the municipal licensing data would be available to you.
But if I have the same access as these guys, I would already have access to that in the computer. I wouldn't have to call. Is that correct?
That's right. All that would be available to you through the DocuPet system online. Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. And just to expand on that a little bit, we don't set the rules for who can access the municipal data from your perspective. We obviously have to abide by all laws, but it would be the municipality that would decide who would have access to what information, providing, of course, it's legal.
Municipal data.
Yeah.
So I'm personally very excited about this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a huge success, and I think it's going to help us. We really have very, very low participation rate, because basically I'm a licensing agent. I don't go chasing people to license their dogs. So this seems like a very proactive way to get people involved and to license their dogs, which is the right thing to do. And the secondary thing is there's a revenue component that will help the city, but the revenue isn't the motivating.
Yeah, it's all really fabulous. I'm really excited about it.
You too.
Sounds great.
It seems like populations, there's a part that are compliers and a part that are non-compliers, so to speak. I like the idea of like the value add proposition, especially in the beginning, because it seems like there's a large segment of the compliers aren't even complying because they don't see the value.
Right.
And then after you get like a critical mass of people, because I feel like if there was any stick in the beginning, then the non-compliers will be like the ones saying almost like don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like people are kind of.
It's a bit like kind of an insurance play, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to pay for insurance, but all you hear is a few different scenarios, or you have to make one claim yourself, and it's like, oh. And that's why we take a lot of time to capture the stories of pets that are reunited in Syracuse and make sure everyone else hears these stories, because if you go online and you look at memes or something, the number that are related to animals, and if we can get those nice local stories about pets that got away and got home here thanks to the licensing program, that helps further the whole idea that there's value to this too. So that's part of what we'll be doing here, if so approved.
Has a question, and then I wanted to point out one other thing for you guys.
I first of all wanted to thank you for including my dog control staff in this process, because I know they were very pleased. But my understanding is that you have been writing quite a few of it specific to what we're doing. So if we implement this September 1st or so, we're not buying a version, correct? If we find out on September 15th that we need an important update, that is all included? Is it cloud-based? As soon as you roll out an update, we get an update?
That's right. Anything that's going to affect your operation, we'll work with you on beforehand. And that would be a lot of what Savannah does too, any changes to go through the system. But again, we don't charge anything for software. We've never sent an invoice for software. So everything we do across the system is designed to improve a lot of the different things.
Okay, so if there's an aspect we're missing, you're going to work with us to introduce that.
That's how the whole thing's been built so far.
Okay, good.
Hopefully our references speak to that.
Well, go ahead, John.
No, that's okay. That's it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you very much for the presentation. We can't wait to see it get in action, and next year when we do a review, we'll see how we're doing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Do you want to